So I was just watching a Jimmy Dore interview with Tim Canova. Uh, this guy ran in the midterms down in Florida in 2016, and he tried again, and before, and he was again. What happened to him in 2016 happened to him again. So twice he's been uh, he's been basically had the election taken away from him, just like just like Stacey Abrams in Georgia, uh, and other elections where uh, uh, Republicans were doing gerrymandering and voter suppression and so on and so forth. But in Tim Canova's case, it's the Democrats who were doing the same things. Uh, and those of you who remember the reports and about how the woman that was in the election board in Florida basically threw out the paper ballots, and they found that the electronic voting machines were easily hackable or could be rigged. Uh, Greg Pallas, he's an investigative journalist. He's also, I believe, has a had a private eye, private investigations company. So he's done a lot of work on it, along with another gentleman uh, that uh, that he works with, uh, who does who covers the same thing. So there's been multiple cases, both the Democrats and the Republicans, uh, meaning the DNC and the RNC and the DCC and all these other political apparatuses under the party banners doing uh, doing things to make sure that they get the person who is been who has gotten the nod. So, as the title says, it's democracy is dead, and free and fair elections is an utter scam, and the entire system has been co-opted, robbed, stolen, and pilfered. So this, uh, and it's a common theme with my videos. I always talk about how there's it's illegitimate. We have an illegitimate government run by a criminal cabal who follow their criminal cabal masters, which would be the 100 millionaires, the billionaires, and basically anybody who has the money and the influence uh, to uh, to lobby and push legislation and policies. So uh, I've been making this comment that we have robber barons and um, we have nobles. That is what we have gone back to. We have gone back to nobility, while the media and everybody else, even in the progressive side, they don't actually come out and say that it's nobility, self-proclaimed nobility, who is running the show, who is doing all this. But that is what we have now. The term robber baron is popping up more and more on the progressive side. Even Democracy Now, which is a PBS, uh, which is part of public broadcast systems, uh, they have even used the term robber baron. And so TYT has also done this. The Real News has been doing this a little bit longer than some of the other progressive channels. I know uh, um, that David Dole on the Rational National has used this term as well recently. But Tim Canova, you should watch the interview on Jimmy Dore's show with Tim Canova. And on Jimmy Dore is has been using the term robber baron more as well. Uh, but one thing that with the interview with Jimmy Dore with Tim Canova is that finally we we have a person who's run for political office, and basically he has used the term that I've been bashing away at, is that we have an illegitimate government, illegitimate system, and that is something I've been doing for 3 years now, or longer. As long as I've been doing these videos, I've been talking about it. I've been I've been insinuating. I've been shouting it. And so what we have is not an oligarchy. We do have a noble fascist rule, and a self-proclaimed noble fascist rule. That's what we have. And what we have to understand uh, is that playing by the rules of these criminal cabal, that's a system, is a surefire way to uh, to to lose. We are currently playing by the rules of a lose lose situation, where the majority loses while trying to play by the rules that are fixed. And just like going to Las Vegas or any of the gambling places, many of us know that the rules are fixed there. There is no reasonable uh, way to win there, and there is no reasonable way to win in a fixed system, in a fixed rigged system. The system must be crushed under the boot hills of the collective. And I have talked before in my videos on how to do it without having to bring out the pitchforks, without having to to march on the powers that be, and that is to go on a general strike. But first and foremost, we have to understand that we live in a fixed rig system of self-proclaimed rulers. And once we understand this, and once we understand the dynamics of how the fixed system, the rigged system, is doing an actual war to make the majority of us rush to the bottom, then we must move quickly. But that understanding is that we are at war with the system, and the system is making sure that we are rushed to the bottom. And no matter where you stand, whether you consider yourself a centrist, whether you consider yourself a right winger or a left, we are all rushing to the bottom because we are abdicating our responsibility, our obligation, our rights to correct the system. And we can correct it by doing exactly as I just mentioned. But if that is not enough, then we must bring out the pitchforks. We must march on the centers of power, and we must take it by any measure necessary. All options must be on the table, and we must be unified and collective in attacking the power centers. And the way to do that without giving up our lives is to do as I've said. And another way to do that is to run for offices and positions as a group. And I've made videos on this before of how, from covering everything from your town councilors, to town councils, to mayors, to judges, to sheriffs, to the state senate, state house representatives, to your federal and to your federal house and senate, to the governors, and we must all do this collectively. So we must grab groups together, and you must go and speak to the people as a group, not one individual going from place to place, but as a group, a unified group under a under a principal banner. This makes it impossible to ignore, and that is something that must be done as well, and not play by the rules. We must ensure it by, when we go to the ballot box, we take our smartphones and take a snapshot of how we voted. When we get home, we must download this or send it to the cloud. Send it into the cloud. We must also print out and keep a hard copy of that. We do this and post it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, how you voted. You do this in conjunction with the other stuff I just talked about. And there is no possible way that they can ignore this. And this will force them to come to us. And that is how we get the change we need. And that is how we correct issues like climate change, like climate disaster, rather, or catastrophe, however you want to term it, about the economic injustices, which is literally stealing and robbing from us. And that is how we get changes immediately. Other ways, other things like the destruction of our ecosystem, which we need. There's no argument, there's no logical or reasonable argument to say that we can do without the ecosystem, which makes life viable on the planet. The home, the one and true home that we all share, for stopping the military invasions done by this criminal cabal, sending our friends, families, to go and fight wars so that the criminal few can make money. That is how we get all these changes, and that is how we have to look at it. And this is how we do it. But first, we must get our friends and neighbors, our families, and our communities to understand the fundamental fact that we live under a dictatorship, an illegal, self-proclaimed, illegitimate dictatorship. And we must rise up and we must do the actions to correct it. And we must put the fear of the people into the criminal cabal. Thanks.